Welcome to the Illuminating Wisdom podcast. I'm your host, Marcia Narayan Weldon, and I'm a lawyer, business strategist, corporate trainer, and executive coach. Each week, I'm going to bring you my favorite entrepreneurs, thought leaders, legal professionals, and other coaches who will inspire, educate, and empower you. Today, you're going to hear from Malvina Messler. She's a courageous woman who overcame the struggles of an abusive relationship and transformed her life through the power of self-love and self-awareness. Her journey is not just a testament to resilience, but also a shining example of how self-love can be a catalyst for change. With the mission to help others break free from toxic relationships, she's dedicated herself to understanding the root causes of why we attract unhealthy partnerships and the role that we play in them. I love speaking with her because, like me, she marries neuroscience and spirituality. She's a quantum success coach. She's got a fantastic story, and she's going to tell you about self-acceptance, self-expression, self-compassion, and self-forgiveness. Let's dive into the conversation with Malvina. I'm so thrilled today to welcome you. We have Malvina Messler, who is a powerhouse quantum success coach, Paris retreat host extraordinaire, and a speaker. She's a former executive and the co-founder of a national franchise brand, and she's helped dozens of entrepreneurs help them live the American dream they were born to live. She's made a commitment to dedicating her personal and professional career to helping entrepreneurs break through the ceiling of their success using neuroscience and quantum success strategies so they can make the impact they're supposed to do. And she's done that for herself. She's redesigned her life, so she's living bi-coastally. In the wintertime, she is ice climbing in Colorado. And in the spring, she's living it up in Paris. She's got the dream life. So we've got to figure out how we can design our lives to live the same way. And she is a force to be reckoned with in the coaching world. So Malvina, welcome. And we will have your much longer bio in the show notes so people can see just how fabulous you are. But thanks for being on Illuminating Wisdom today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I love your consciousness and your personal journey. So I'm delighted to be speaking with you today, Masha.
And actually, we have a lot in common. So both of us use neuroscience in our coaching, and we talk about the concept of neuroplasticity. Now, for those people who have no idea what we're talking about, why don't you explain what that is and how it really helps you help the people that you serve?
Absolutely. Well, the study of the brain shows us how powerful our brain is. And one of those really unique ways that we get access to changing our lives is through neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is this ability of the brain to rewire itself, reorganize itself, and change its shape, essentially. And how it does it, it's through the training of the mind and through our beliefs and thoughts and the programming of the mind, we can actually change the neural pathways, build new neural pathways, weaken some that we don't want to strengthen because they represent some habits that don't serve us, and we can strengthen those that we really want to cultivate because they align with our goals for life.
Great. And I know that some people talk about the concept of manifestation and metaphysics, and you actually marry both of them. Again, another thing we have in common. So some people might find it odd that you've just finished talking about the brain and neural pathways and all of the science, but you also focus on things like manifestation and quantum physics. How did you marry the two? And again, for those who say, I don't even know what quantum physics are, what does that mean to you?
Absolutely. And I love this question because there's so much misconceptions about the manifestation world, about the quantum, and so many people think it's woo-woo and some magic. But the truth is, you said the keywords at quantum physics. And quantum physics is really the science that gives us insight to how we can actually create our own reality and desired results using our mind and marrying what we know about how our brain works, how our nervous system works, but also with the spiritual aspect of it and with the energetic aspect. Because the truth is that everything in the world is energy, and when it boils down to it, even our bodies, we used to think that the atom was the smallest particle, but now the science has advanced so much more, and we know that inside the atom there is the energy, and that is really what we're made out of, what everything else is made out of. So knowing those principles and really understanding the 52 universal laws that support it can really help us live lives with more ease, with less resistance, experience more flow, and just enjoy ourselves here while we're here, because that's why we're here, to really cultivate that joy, bliss, love, connection with each other, and not be stuck on a hamster wheel.
Right. So speaking of resistance, you must have some clients, or maybe you don't because they come to you because of this, but do you have clients who are resistant to that and say, yeah, I don't know about this atom, this molecule. I'm just trying to get it promoted, or I'm just trying to do this. How is that going to help me? This sounds a little far-fetched.
Mm.
How do you break down that resistance, and how do you get them to understand that this actually will help them both personally and professionally?
Mm. In a conscious work, as I'm sure you know, we know that one of the biggest enemies of raising our consciousness and advancing in life is our
Mhm.
ego.
Right.
So the ego stands in a way, and I'm blessed that very much like I teach my clients, we create our own reality. There is something called RAS, reticular activating system, in our brain, and that is
Hmm.
a filter through which we see the world and we attract things to us. And so that starts with me declaring what I want to attract and what kind of clients I want to work with. So one of the criteria is being open-minded, is being committed to getting the results, because frankly, we can either have results or excuses. And it is quite a big journey in navigating the ego, because our
Right.
ego wants to keep us small and it wants to
Hmm.
stay and defend that conscious reasoning mind. However, I feel like a lot of my clients have already tried it. We've all been there. We've already,
Hmm.
we're smart, we're accomplished individuals, professional careers. So our left brain, our reasoning mind has been at its peak state. And when people get to that state and they still see that the life that they live is not as joyous as they wanted, is not as vibrant, they don't have the sense of peace they wanted, they still feel that self doubt, then they start wondering, like, why is it? I've done everything I'm supposed to. I got that promotion. I got that title. I got that PhD. What's going on? And that's when they open up to looking at other ideas, and with that open mind, the truth is, you don't really need to understand how all of this works,
Right.
uh, and we can still get you results. So I think that's the power of the mind, that as long as you apply those techniques and you are coachable, it will work for you.
Now, how do you decide if somebody's coachable? Have you ever met somebody that you say, I'd love to take your money, but you're just not coachable? So, how, because I often
Mm.
see people will use hashtag coachable, but I don't know if everybody really is. So, how do you decide if somebody's coachable? And how can a person who's sitting here thinking, maybe I need a coach, but I don't know if this is the right time? So, what's that
Mm.
analysis that you recommend people go through when they think about this? Or how do they decide, do I need a coach or do I need a therapist?
Mm. Love those questions, because there's quite
Hmm.
a distinction between that. And um, there is such a, I talk about the map of consciousness and evolution of our consciousness as we move through life, as we open up our mind to new things. And what we know about our consciousness is that we all experience different feelings, different emotional states. And sometimes when we're stuck in that state for the longer periods of time, sometimes even years, that can limit us. So, a lot of times when people experience something horrific, they endured a trauma, and it's very recent. A lot of times, when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, their basic
Hmm.
need is safety. They don't feel safe. So, in order to meet that need of safety, a lot of times the therapy will be a really great path to get them there. When you're already in that place where survival is no longer your priority, you feel a little more grounded, a
Right.
little bit like, okay, I got this. The bear is not chasing me anymore. That's when you can actually start looking at coaching, because therapy is really to help you survive, but coaching, the way I see it, is to help you thrive. So when you're ready to tackle those dreams that have been on your wish list and you haven't, and half of your life is behind you and they're still on your bucket list, or when you're ready to give yourself permission to live
Mm-hmm.
life even a little fuller,
Right.
that's when coach can really get you there, because the role of a coach is to see you for your potential and hold you up to that potential in a loving way.
Right.
And so you can see the difference there. With a therapy, you really need to be held in a safe space, and challenges of life, and that growth is actually threatening your nervous system at that point. So I would say, ask yourself the question: are you looking, for safety, or are you ready to grow and up level your life, go after your dreams? And then the coaching path could be a very great path for you.
I love that. And I think that's a really helpful framework for people to think about. And just to be clear, there are some times when people will be in coaching and still have their therapist, because I know I never
Sure.
tell people to fire their therapist. And then sometimes coaching tends to look forward, but sometimes you have to go back just a little bit. So I always tell people, make sure you tell your therapist what we're working on, what we're doing, especially sometimes because you can get pretty deep in coaching, even if you don't intend to. And you always want to make sure that you don't cause some of those issues. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. You and I are co authors in a book called Becoming You. And the title has changed. So let me make sure I've got it. Becoming You, Self Image, Identity, and Reinvention. And it's an anthology put together by several people. I'm not sure if you know this, but I was also a co author in another anthology by the same people, Wendy Bloom Weiss and Patricia Wooster. And I started my chapter off in that book almost the same way you start your chapter off in this book. So in
No
Becoming
way.
You, you start your chapter talking about surviving an abusive marriage to an addict. By the way, I've been married twice. It wasn't, neither of those people were the abusive addicts. Okay, just to be clear. But surviving a relationship with an abusive addict, and it changes you and it makes you. And to be honest, I think it has made it much easier for me to help people. I kind of think about everything happens, for you, not to you, or sometimes things happen through you. I didn't think that at the time, trust me, right? But now I see how it helped me in so many different ways, because I luckily survived through it. Tell us about why you chose to start your chapter off with this discussion about waking up on a beach, right? And what you were going through, why you chose to be so
Mhm.
vulnerable, and how does it help you serve others today?
Mm. Well, this story, this point in my life was really critical to informing my path as a coach later on. And one of the things I specialize in is the neuroscience of change.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Because I experienced the pain that was the result of me not being aware of how our mind works, how our nervous system works. And at the time, when I start the chapter, waking up at the beach, not knowing where I am, the police officers are picking me up from the ground and telling me that it's illegal to sleep on the beach, and they're concerned what I was doing there. And I then remember how I got there, which is that the night prior, I had a fight with my ex-husband, and he threw me out of the house and left me, without phone, wallet, nothing. And we just moved to Hawaii, and it was supposed to be this dream life. And here I
Right.
am, helpless by myself. And at that time, when I was walking to the beach because I had nowhere else to go, I decided that this was enough, that psychological abuse, but what I was allowing myself to still endure, because there's always two to tango, and I certainly was a part of this equation, that it was gonna end, that I deserve better, but this doesn't serve me or anyone else, that this is not the way to live life, and this is it. And then when I woke up in the morning, got home, and last night I was so ready to just leave and start over. And that morning I get home and I look at the clock, and oh my gosh, my morning shift at the restaurant, I used to work in a restaurant back then, is starting in 30 minutes. And what kicked in? The habits, the routine kicked in. And I rushed, instead of packing my belongings, I rushed to the restaurant. And after working all day, coming home, you're back
Mm.
at it. You're back in it.
Right.
So it took me another 4 years to actually exit that relationship. And that was, destructive, didn't serve any one of us. And I asked myself, because everyone thought I was a very intelligent woman, and
Hmm.
somehow I didn't feel capable of making that decision for myself. And so what I realized was that I actually had more compassion for my ex-husband, and that promise for good and for bad really meant so much to me. And I also saw his struggles, and I knew that he wasn't his disease yet.
Hmm.
In that process, what I eventually realized, that I abandoned myself
Wow.
by loving him, by feeling compassion for him, by caring for him, by standing by him. I wasn't standing by my side. I wasn't my own best friend. I didn't care for myself. And that was a big moment of awakening, that, what was I doing? And I clearly couldn't help anyone else if I couldn't help myself. And so when I eventually made that tough decision, because when I divorced my ex-husband, I was fully in love with him, and I cared for him deeply, but it was a decision that was really important. What I realized after that the floodgates open, the path
Right.
and the journey back to myself allowed me to be here today. I wouldn't be here today. I would be probably meeting with you, and you would be my coach, or I would be sitting across the therapist who would be still, trying to help me. So that decision to put myself first, and become my own self advocate was really powerful one. And I wanted women and men out there to know that there is nothing wrong with you when you're staying too long in a job that doesn't serve you, in a place that doesn't nourish you, in a relationship that doesn't support you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're whole and complete. And there is a lot to learn about the nervous system and how it's wired to help you navigate that.
That is so important because I think, especially when you're dealing with people at a certain level of education or professionalism or success or what people think is success, or they live this great life and they beat themselves up because they say, I can, I've been able to get this degree or this job or this beautiful house and I'm miserably unhappy. Why can't I leave? And everybody is judging them. But sometimes we just
Mm,
have to give ourselves grace. And I think it comes to the point, excuse me, when it's too bad to stay. Because sometimes people are in the situation where it's not bad enough. I'm just waiting. But to know that there is support, and also to know that when the time is right, you'll be ready to go. So never advocate somebody staying in a situation which is unsafe for them. But
mm,
we from the outside can't look in and say, Malvina, I can't believe you stayed there for 4 more years after that. Who are you to tell me what I should be doing? And in fact, as a coach, you can now have your lived experiences and you're not telling them what to do, but you can have that kind of empathy, which I think is missing in so many situations. People might have that sympathy. I feel bad for you, but you've got the empathy. You've know what it's
mm.
been like. And how do you get people, to make some of those mindset shifts? What are some tangible tools? Obviously, knowing how the brain works is very, very important. And knowing what triggers you, knowing different even foods to eat, the importance of sleep and rest and sunlight. There's so many things that people don't realize that can actually completely help rewire their brain and their nervous system. What tips might you have for somebody who has to make a major mindset shift? Maybe they're not leaving a terrible relationship, but maybe it's a terrible job, or maybe it's making a career decision that seems unthinkable to them because they're, like you said, trying to keep safe.
Yes, and I love what you're sharing, is because in my view, what I've seen around in a coaching world is that the coaches who lead through embodiment, and therefore we become vulnerable, sharing those stories, are the most powerful in terms of really inspiring their clients to take the actions that they want to take in their life. And there is something that can very much stand in our way of shifting from unwanted to wanted reality, which is our loss aversion bias. It is
Mm,
a psychological bias, and we're all kind of experience it in different times in life, where we are more committed to protecting what we already have than for taking the risk to gain something new that we haven't experienced, because we've lived with this what we know. And sometimes we hear those stories, the evil that you know is better than the one that you don't
right,
know. So it's a lot of that is in our cultural programming too. So whenever I start a journey with anyone, I would tell them, take a look at your life and the change you want to make, and where you are today, and think about it. What is the most likely foreseeable future if you don't do anything about it, if you stay where you are in this dynamic, whatever it is? And when people think about, okay, I can get through today, I can get through tomorrow, but when you think about, okay, what is the next 5 months gonna look like, what's
right,
next year, how 5 years, and when you start thinking not just about yourself, because we can endure a lot and sometimes we don't put our self-care first, but when we start thinking about the ripple effect on other people, if
right,
you are not nourishing yourself, if you're not taking care of yourself, how can you take care of your kids? How can you be there for your students, for your clients, for your community members?
right,
You cannot pour from an empty cup. It's as simple as that. So when you start looking outside of yourself and see how much more you would be able to do, not just for yourself, because no one wants to be selfish. We
right,
are innately kind and heart-centered human beings. But when you start looking at how much more you could be for others, in your family, in your community, or the world,
right.
I always find that clients get more inspired about this, and they see that their life matters, because everyone
Yes,
lives matters. So
absolutely.
that is the first step, to see that. And I think, um, when you start balancing it on a scale of, is it
Hmm.
worth it, then
Right.
you see what's at stake, what's really at stake, what's the difference you can make in your children's life, in your community's life. And that is a powerful motivator.
Absolutely, because people tend to be motivated by what they need or what they fear. And I think if people understand how they can be motivated, it makes a huge difference. Now, you've talked about a self love epidemic, which is interesting to me because from what I see, people are less happy than ever. They're more unhappy than they can be. They have hashtag self love and then they're just miserable. What do you mean by a self
Mm.
love epidemic? And how can we get to this self love epidemic?
Yeah, so I actually feel like there's this self-love crisis in the world, where studies show, there was a few years ago a study, international study done where it measured self-love index actually,
Hmm.
and it proved that 1 in 2 women feel more self-doubt than self-love on everyday basis. Over
Hmm.
65% of women, for example, uh, opt out of important life events because they don't like the way they look or their body feels.
Hmm.
And there are so many more studies like that. And actually, the age where little girls start experiencing self doubt and lack of confidence, it's at age 9, which is so
Wow.
early. Children should be
Wow.
brave and playful. And so
Mhm.
clearly, this indicates that we've got a problem on our hands. And I feel like it stems from one core limiting belief, which is the belief I held for the longest time. When I exited my destructive relationship, you would think that my life just became
Magic
wonderful.
and roses, right? No.
Yes, right. And actually, what happened was, because I thought that my relationship was a problem, but actually, the problem was inside me. So, with the way my mind was working, I had a limited identity about myself, and I started attracting other toxic relationships and toxic partners to myself. And eventually, I was thinking, okay, what is going on here? Why am I
Right.
going back, getting trapped in that cycle? And so that's what the message I want to share with people, that it's not enough to just change the environment. You gotta really get to the core. Why did you even attract it in the first place? And for me, I realized at that point that my mom actually illuminated it for me, and she said, you know what, you just don't love yourself. And I thought it was the craziest thing to say, and your
Right.
mom is saying this. And then I
Right.
said with this, and I said with this, and I said with this, and it hit me. Yes, that she was right, because I had one core belief that self-love was selfish. And with that belief, I essentially was really running away from the self-love, because I thought it would make me egotistic, it would make me
Right.
self-absorbent. And so subconsciously, I didn't want to partake in it. But the moment I did, the moment I started accepting myself, feeling compassion for myself, forgiving myself, speaking kind words to myself, and putting myself first, magic happened. Not only
Right.
my internal world was transformed, but the way people treated me was transformed, because the way we love ourselves teaches others how to love us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We teach people how to treat us.
Yeah.
That's one of the phrases that I've heard that stuck with me, and I think about it all the time. Why is this person doing this? Well, what am I allowing? And it's interesting.
Mm,
Even earlier in the conversation, you said it takes two to tango. What was my accountability in that relationship? And a lot of times, people would never even think about it. It's their fault. I'm unhappy because of them, and we don't
mm,
necessarily think about what's our part, which is definitely not a victim blaming or anything like that. But it's a matter of we all have to have some level of accountability. But I want to switch gears again. You are doing retreats in Paris. And typically, when people hear of women's retreats, they're going to be in Bali or they're going to be in Tulum or Costa Rica with a waterfall and some Reiki, and nothing wrong with that. But you've picked Paris, which is a fabulous city. But why Paris, and how are your retreats different?
mm. Yes, so there's many reasons for Paris to be that location. I
Mhm.
feel like Paris is my soul city because it really nurtured me. And a few years back, I went to Paris. I had a really successful business career. I was a
Mhm.
VP of a tech company, and six-figure income, and I wasn't fulfilled, and I wasn't fully happy, and I felt like I was in a rat race, but without really sense of living on purpose. And so I went to Paris on a solo trip, and the Paris poured into me. The magic of Paris, the beauty, the all the senses, from the smells of the food and the flowers to the sounds of the music to the beautiful architecture. It was just such a rich and abundant place that really activated my inspiration, helped me connect to my intuition and my spiritual intelligence. And upon the return, not only I was my batteries were recharged, but I felt really a clear sense of my direction. And that's when I started my business and my coaching business. I quit my my job, and I really took that leap of faith. and and Paris is a city of love, so what a better place to show women how to love themselves, because a lot of times we are looking for someone outside of ourselves. We're looking for the
Yes.
second half, we're looking for that savior, for someone who's going to make us happy, who will make us feel loved. But the truth is, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And if I
Mhm.
tell you this, it's gonna kind of resonate for a moment, and you'll forget about it. But when you go on a retreat for a week to the city of love, and you're going through this intentional journey where I take women through the steps of connecting to your soul essence, to really getting to know your self-expression. We go through exercises. We're really going through self-acceptance, but process of self-compassion and self-forgiveness. We write a love letter to our bodies, because so many
Right.
women have tricky relationship with that. And then I take you through those somatic experiences and immersive experiences where you get to know your soul essence by creating your very own perfume in the oldest
Wow.
perfumery of Paris.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and then
Wow.
you go to the House of Dior, which is one of the oldest, fashion houses. And the beauty of their collections, it's not just shopping experience. The clothes are really art pieces, so you get inspired by that. You really start thinking like, what is my self-expression? Because I don't know about you, but I know that when I was in a business world here in America, my identity, my self-expression kind of disappeared. What I did was I
Yes.
tried to fit in, so I started wearing clothes that everyone else was wearing, and you couldn't tell my vibrant,
Right.
European culture and any of this. So I really help women connect to that part of themselves, and then we crown it with the beautiful photo shoot that is not at all superficial. It's about really bringing out your inner beauty and capturing it
Ah,
in front of the Eiffel Tower. And throughout this
beautiful.
process, there's one more thing we do, which is, you mentioned Bali and other places, which I love Bali, and that may be one of my retreats too. But when we go to those places like a beach vacation, a lot of times we take vacation, we recharge our batteries, we relax, and we come home and we get back on a hamster wheel. So what was important to me is to take women to a place where it feels a little like home, in a terms of that it is a hustling and bustling city. And one
Right.
thing that Parisians do is they celebrate slow living.
Oh,
And so,
yes.
yes, you know that. So
The
I
slow
teach with,
meals, sitting down,
oh,
enjoying with family, sitting at the cafe, not being rushed by a waiter. It's a totally different
yes.
experience.
Absolutely. And even parks, we go to the park to be active. In Europe and Paris, there are tons of gorgeous parks, and you see people by themselves reading a book, just gazing at the horizon and thinking and being comfortable with their own thoughts. And even French cafes, when you're sitting in cafes, all the tables are facing outwards, and there's
Hmm.
tons of people who are there by themselves, which is
Yes,
not a sight that you see a lot in America, right? And so
exactly.
I really wanted to bring that to the women who come on a journey, and they actually have a date with themselves
I love
during
it.
the retreat, so they learn how to be okay with themselves, not to promote being single or being alone, but to really know that you are enough. And Paris and Parisian culture really teaches us a lot of that. And so they also learn self-care practices that they can take home with them, and so they can really integrate them right away, so that vacation is not lost on them. It's so much more than
Ah.
vacation.
Now, so speaking of self care, what is one habit that you do no matter how tired you are? Let's say you've been living it up in Paris, you come home at 5 in the morning, before the sun, and you've got to be up early. What is something that you do either at night or in the morning that is non negotiable? No matter what, you will always do it because of how it makes your day or night go. What's a tip you can
Yes.
give to our listeners?
Whew, there are so many, but the one non-negotiable is my spiritual morning practice and my evening ritual. So I believe that your day starts the night prior, and so in
Right.
the evening, I'm also a trauma coach, and as that, I know that when we don't resolve things at the end of the day, it just piles up. And so at the end, I have my self-love, gratitude, and self-compassion ritual, where I actually forgive myself for things I didn't get done and things of that nature. And then I decide powerfully on 3 items that are the most important for me to tackle the next day. And I make the decision not from a place of I'm rushed, I'm in a hurry, and someone wants something from me, but from the place of being anchored and deciding this is going to serve my highest good. And when I put it in my subconscious mind before I go to sleep, my subconscious mind knows that and works towards it. So when I wake up in the morning, I have that clarity, and then I do my spiritual practice, my affirmative mind treatment, because our subconscious mind works on autopilot, as you know. And
Yes.
so when we don't give it an order and a direction to work in, it's going to find itself some problem to solve. It's going to wander, and it's going to go to
Right.
sometimes to those default programs that don't serve us. So it's so critical for your mind hygiene to
Hmm.
actually get that brain, give the brain direction. And you can do it in many different ways by really asserting what you want. And the most critical thing is sleep, because sleep, if we don't sleep, we cannot function, we cannot use our brain to our fullest potential. Nothing happens without the sleep. It's during the sleep where our actually brain washes itself. So definitely
Absolutely.
that's a non-negotiable in itself.
Yeah, and you are a brain person. I'm a brain person. And, we didn't talk about the prefrontal cortex, which is basically the CEO of our brain. And at night, that prefrontal cortex is meant to shut down and so that we can, actually get some rest. But we've got all the dinging and the pinging of the phone and the scrolling and
Mm.
the lights next to our bed and the waking up every time there's a ping to see who's texted us or what emails come in. That's why people don't realize. And that's why your decisions that you make late at night aren't often the best decisions because you're not supposed to be making those decisions that late. So now I'm going to close up because I want people always to leave. And you've given so many nuggets of information. So I look forward to you coming up with the next one. What is a book or a work of art or a song or a mantra that you've had or you've seen that changed your life that you'd recommend people think about?
Mm. So many great books. I actually run a conscious entrepreneur book club and mastermind. So
Love
we
it.
read a different book every month because there are so many great ones. The Power of Subconscious Mind is a foundational book. If you haven't read it,
Joseph
it's a
Murphy, right?
must. Yes,
Dr.
it is
Joseph Murphy.
100%. But from the recent books, I would say the book The Radical Awakening by Dr. Shefali. It's a
Mhm.
phenomenal book, especially for women who are on their own journey of spiritual awakening or just coming to themselves. And that is a beautiful roadmap. So I would recommend that. And it's just did wonders for me and many women, and it's a book that I gift to others a lot. So
So
now I'm going to be gifting
say the
my
name of
book.
it again. Say the name of it
It-
again.
it's called The Radical Awakening by
Okay.
Dr. Shefali.
Right. So I'll put a link in it to our show notes. And of course, I'm going to put a link to our book, Becoming You, which is, depending on people listen, the launch date is April 28th of 2023. Some people may be listening to this after that, but it'll be available on Kindle, etc. So I'll put a link there as well. And how can people work with you if we're going to put, of course, all of your information in the show notes, but if people are driving or doing their laundry and they're not looking at something right now, how can people work with you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Well, my website is malvinamessler.com, double S. And I do one-on-one coaching with clients. I also have a program called Dream Builder, which is truly the path to realize your dreams. And of course, my retreats are available. And if you just want to get a sense for who I am, there are also some free resources on my website. Get Unstuck Guide is one of those that is pretty powerful for those who are wanting to navigate change and need a little help with that.
Excellent. Well, Malvina, it's been such a joy to talk to you. Your Paris retreat sounds amazing. Are you doing them every year or just a one time thing? Because in case people hear this and they say, I want to go, is it typically a specific time of the year?
It's typically in the spring, in May of each year. And there is a chance I might do them more frequently. So far it's been a spring event. If you're interested, it's a small event. Definitely reach out as soon as you're interested, so you can get on my wait list and I can get you information.
Great. And so, if you want to leave the audience with one takeaway, one thing that they can put into place right now based on what you've been coaching and teaching and talking about today, what would that one thing be, that one takeaway?
Mm. I would say protect your peace and aim for bliss. We are energetic beings, and our energy really matters. We have a certain frequency. So if you're not feeling at peace, if you're in a stress, anxiety, fear, uh, use tools, whatever tools you have, whether it's petting your dog, going for a walk, to shift out of that, because those low frequency emotional states not only prohibit you from stepping to your fullest potential, but even prohibit your brain for working at full capacity to help you solve the problems you have. So your energy matters. Protect your energy. So your body, your brain, and your spirit can support you on your journey.
Excellent closing words. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Illuminating Wisdom podcast. It was great to see you. And again, for the audience, we'll have information about how to work with her, how to connect with her, how to live it up in Paris with her in the show notes.
Mhm.
Thanks again, Malvina.
Thank you for having
Okay.
me.
Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay tuned for the next episode. If you like what you heard, subscribe and share it with others.